Okay, hello students. I'm going to quickly go over the page 17, 19th century immigration, the search for the American dream. Of course, you can see the full screened version of the PowerPoint in your Google Classroom. So I just want to quickly explain a few things, how you fill this out, and a few details that you're going to need to know for the STAR test. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, this here it shows the turn of the century, which means from the 1800s to the 1900s. That's turn of the 1900s. Okay, and so turn of the century immigration to the United States. Notice in 1880, 49% of the population was Northwestern Europe. That would be the English, the French, the Dutch, those colony ethnicities. Okay. Only 27% of the population at that time was Eastern and Southern European, like Poland and Italy, and then the rest of the world was, Africa, Asia, Latin America was 24% of the population. But by 1910, which is only 30 years, 3/4 of the people were Eastern and Southern Europeans, because during this time, that's where millions of people came in search of a new life. That made the percentage that were the colony ethnicities down to 16%, and the rest of the world down to 11%. So that is a huge demographic shift that happened between those years. These are the old immigrants. These are going to be the new immigrants. All right? Okay, so Great Migration. Let's go ahead and put this information in our boxes. In old immigrants, that's like the people from the colony days all the way to 1880, and then the new immigrants, people coming from Southern and Eastern Europe. Old immigrants before 1880 came from North and Western Europe. They were Protestant, which means they're Christian, but they're not Catholic. They spoke English. They had skills such as being merchants, blacksmiths, and weavers. So, and they were more likely to be educated. All right. New immigrants that came in after 1880 shows, and it's what that 73% showing. Approximately 27 million people came from Southern and Eastern Europe. They were mostly Catholic and Jewish, few skills, didn't speak English, and they were different cultures. So that's going to create some tension between the old and the new immigrants based on the word nativism. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and put in this information in old and new immigrants. Okay, so here is a picture of people boarding a ship to immigrate to America. As you can see, the top people are going to have better accommodations than the people down below. They're going to be in the bottom decks. Okay, so the richer you are, the higher you were in the ship. All right, so let's go ahead and go to push factors. People are pushed away because of economic reasons and poverty. Many people come to America because they're being persecuted for their beliefs. Many people come to avoid wars. Europe is always having wars, and America at this time would have a tendency to stay out of wars, isolation. Natural disasters like the potato famine in Ireland. Now America has more Irish people than Ireland does because of so many Irish immigrating to America. And a lot of people come from Eastern and Southern Europe because they want a more modern life, a more technological life, so that America offered at the time. Okay, so take these, put them in push factors, but then I want you to do the pull factor version for these. So if you're leaving for economic poverty, what are you going to write here? If you said, hey, jobs, then write economic opportunities and job opportunities. Okay? Religious persecution. Over here, you're going to put America pulls people in because the freedom of religion. Okay? Go ahead and write a few more of your own ideas. You can base them on these also if you want. Okay? So what other reasons pull people into America? I'm going to pause the video and do that. Okay, so here's a political cartoon showing that people coming to America this is a metaphor, the dark skies, country. They're leaving bad situations. And this here, America is right. The flag's right there in the center of the light, and that demonstrates opportunity and a better way of life, maybe the American dream. See the ark? Noah's Ark maybe represents the America's inviting you to move this by accident. I'm just going to not save it. Anyway, oh goodness. Okay, so anyway, so this is showing religious freedom and toleration. Of course, Uncle Sam is in lots of political cartoons. His initials are U.S. Uncle Sam, United States, and so he's a symbol of America. And so whenever he shows up in a political cartoon, it's representing America. As you can see, most of the people are poor, but there are some people coming that have wealth, but maybe they're coming for other reasons other than poverty. Okay. Here's a picture of some people immigrating, and they're on the deck of a ship. Notice the E. E in the word immigrant means you're exiting your country. So people leaving a country is called an immigrant. Is an immigrant spelled with an E, E for exit. And if immigrants coming in, they're coming into the country, they're spelled with an I. So E, immigrant, exit. E. I, immigrant, enter. Not enter, but coming in. That's spelled with an I. Okay, so that's how you can tell the difference on that. Okay, here are immigrants, and they're apparently on Ellis Island. You can see New York in the distance. Okay, remember, the upper classes would be in the upper decks with accommodations, and the lower would be in what's called steerage. Okay, not nice accommodations. A lot of it was originally designed for like storing cargo, and now it'll be human cargo. Okay, so and most people came to America during this time in steerage. Okay, journey across the Atlantic. Okay, so go ahead and put this in. Put your first and second class information here and steerage here. First and second class accommodations, good accommodations. Steerage, terrible conditions. Most immigrants traveled this way. Unsanitary conditions, 2 bathrooms per 200 passengers, rarely offering bathing facilities. So you can only imagine what that was like. Oops. Okay, passage to the U.S. often cost this life-saving, so people were showing up with nothing. Okay, so they were going to be in a situation when they arrived. 2 main entry ports in America. Go ahead and, by Ellis Island, write New York, Ellis Island, but underneath, go ahead and write, which often gets overlooked, put Angel Island, and that's the west coast in San Francisco underneath. Now, so Europeans are coming in New York because that's the port they would be coming in on the east coast. Asians would be coming in on the west coast, and they come in Angel Island. So Chinese, Japanese, they come in on the west coast. That's Angel Island. Okay, so put that information in this box here. All right, so here's a photograph of Ellis Island, the beautiful building and the brickwork. Here's the Statue of Liberty that was designed by Eiffel. He did the Eiffel Tower in Paris. So this is a gift from France, and we get it in 1876, and it gets installed in New York in the 1880s. And now it becomes a symbol of immigration. And immigrants, they see this statue and they're awed by it, and so pretty cool. All right, and here's some immigrants that look rather haggard and tired, and but they're coming here for a new life, and they look like maybe a little they're a little bit concerned of what am I going to do? I'm not bringing anything with me because they spent all their money on the ticket, the passage to come to America. All right. So 1892 to 1920, go ahead and put that in this box as well, in the Ellis Island box. Fit it in there. So 1892 to 1920s, 75% of immigrants processed through Ellis Island. The other 25% would be Angel Island, places like New Orleans and Galveston, Texas. All right, so let's go ahead and skip on down to the medical inspections. So here's the medical part right here. All right, so first and second class, they had a quick medical inspection. And the steerage, they had, they could get through the medical inspection in 15 to 45 minutes. The goal was to keep out diseases that were a danger to the general population. You want to keep out diseases like tuberculosis. They could stay in quarantine to hope to get better, but sometimes they were turned back because they were too sick. Okay, so here is a photograph. Of course, you don't have your own private room. You're examined like in an assembly line. This guy here, I sometimes think, I wonder if he's being told right there by the immigration station guy, worker, maybe he's being told, your name is very difficult to say, so we're going to anglicize it, which means make it make it easier for someone who speaks English to say. So this would often occur with people with difficult names to say. All right. So here's a couple being inspected of a health inspection. All right. So here's the legal. We're going to put that in this part of your graph. Now remember, you don't have the ability to print. Just draw the boxes. Okay. There would be approximately 2-minute questionnaire for most people. Many immigrants had their names anglicized, which was to make it sound more like English names, and about 2% were sent back. So you want to put that in this box here. Okay. All right, so here's a photograph of the people being processed through Ellis Island. Looks almost like mass production. This is the time of industrialization. Okay, life in America. 75% of immigrants lived in cities, so 75% are going to stay in the urban areas. Neighborhoods provided stores with ethnic foods, newspapers, churches, and jobs. So people were drawn to, when you get off the ship, you're going to be naturally drawn to people who speak your language, eat your foods, practice the same religion. So, and also it would be a good way to network for jobs. Okay, living conditions. Oh, here's a picture of New York City. This is a city that immigration built. 19th century immigration. Okay, so tenement housing, that's a very important term. Be sure to write that down. We're going to see a photograph of that. This is the typical housing for people living in the cities. They were often run down, low rent, apartment houses. They would have 1,200 people in one building in 120 rooms. That means 10 people are stuffed in these small rooms. They were dirty, crowded, they had fires, disease, and had a high infant mortality rate, which means the babies often died in those conditions. Here's a photograph of people stuffed in a room, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, possibly 6 back there just in this corner alone. And very hazardous. I'm sure, I don't know if that's a wood-burning stove there, but there's blankets right there. People had to stay warm. I'm sure the fire hazards were often because of trying to stay warm. All right, so here's an ethnic neighborhood of immigrants. Here's Romano, must be Italian. Okay, so working conditions. Go ahead and put that on this side. Low wages, 10 cents an hour, 12-hour days, dangerous working conditions, 35,000 workers killed on the job between 1880 and 1900. Remember, Carnegie made $1.20 a day in the reading that we read about him because he was an immigrant. You may remember that from the Captains and Robbers video or lesson. So 35,000 workers, if that many people were killed in 20 years in America, government agency OSHA would have a real problem with that because now safety is regulated in the workplace. Children leaving school in order to work. Of course, now there's child labor laws, which they didn't have back then. Everyone in the family had to work to put food on the table, to pay the bills. So put that information in working conditions. Okay, here's a little girl working in looks like a textile factory, which has, see all the spools of thread? Her job, kids had little hands, they could switch out the parts, they could be paid low wages, and so I'm sure she would rather have been in school instead of working. Here's unsafe working conditions. Check out it's glowing hot metal. This guy is pulling it backwards. Look at the floor. It's lumpy dirt. It's not even a concrete floor. And so there was tripping hazards, and he could have easily fallen down on these glowing hot big pieces of metal, steel. Okay, here's a coal mine. Kids back then, worked in coal mines. Looks like they're sorting through coal. And this guy has got a stick. He's the older kid. Probably says, "Hey, get to work, kid." And they're breathing these. They're breathing in that black dust. It's settling in their lungs, and if they catch a cold, or they could easily have a serious situation with black lung and not be able to breathe. Okay, so here is a well-known political cartoon about immigrants of the day, and this is showing that relationship between the old immigrants versus the new immigrants. Now, these people have been in America for some time, and they're established, but it shows where they came from. They're shadows of their past. They were just like this guy getting off the ship. You know it's a ship because you can see this rope is tight. Okay, and so, but the immigrants, the old immigrants that have been here for generations, they're checking out the new immigrant with fear, suspicion, and hostility. So this is like fear as well. But this guy might be a guy that's we're going to mention in our next lesson regarding political machines. Some people took advantage of the situation and would greet the immigrants coming off the boat and offer them assistance with housing and with a job, but there were strings attached, and I'll teach you that when we learn about boss tweed and political machines. So anyway, this is showing the hostility and suspicions and fear of the old immigrants towards the new immigrants coming at the time, and that word is nativism. Okay, so let's go down to American nativism and fill in this last box. Many Americans viewed immigrants with hostility, fear, and suspicion. Americans worried that immigrants would take their jobs. So that's nativism. These two items, go ahead. We've already learned about the Chinese Exclusion Act, but go ahead and add that in there because it ties in with this kind of this nativism attitude. In 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act, law forbidding immigration from China for 10 years, but of course it was extended over and over and was actually on the books. The act was still around until 1943. Go ahead and write down 1921 is when they stopped letting so many people in with in such large numbers. Of course, there was 27 million immigrants coming in. It was really easy for them to come in. Quick health inspection, a few questions, and voila, you were in. But in 1921, quotas are going to be enacted on immigration. A lot of it is going to have to do with what we learned in World War I in the near future, where Russia becomes the Soviet Union, and there's a fear of communism. So that had a lot to do with it as well, and we'll learn about that later. But quotas is a set number on immigration from each country. So there were so many people that could come in from this country. There were so many people could come in from that country. So there was a quota system, a set number placed on immigration based on what nationalities. Okay, so only a certain amount of people were allowed to come into U.S. from each country. All right, so that is the quota. That's going to be the Immigration Act of 1921. So write those two things down at the bottom here, and that concludes this lesson. And so once again, you could go through the PowerPoint and go at your own speed and watch the videos that I posted that go with it. Okay? All right, thank you for watching.